Regular session meeting for Tuesday, August 18th, 2020 is called into session. Mr. Curry, would you like to lead us in prayer, please?
Absolutely. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for this opportunity to serve the residents of Madison County and the students of Madison County. We ask for your wisdom and guidance as we lead during this unprecedented time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I recommend approval of the agenda
Motion.
dated August 18th.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the agenda dated August 18th, 2020. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 I recommend approval of the minutes dated July 9th, 2020.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval for the minutes dated July 9th, 2020. Is there any discussion on the minutes as they are published? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Informational items, item A, the capital plan, and Mr. Gazort will come up and answer any questions concerning the capital plan. If you look at the document that we have provided, there are basically four parts to the capital plan. The first part is the current or the completed projects that we've already actually started, completed, or the projects that are currently being finalized. Section 2 is the projects that we're proposing to cover with the bond funds that we will possibly be receiving. Those items are itemized based on greatest need. Part 3 is unfunded items, and those are items that are unfunded we're not able to cover as of yet. And then Section 4 are the athletic unfunded items. Any questions? Mr. Gazort will cover any other information that needed to be covered with the capital plan.
You kind of point out the differences maybe between what we looked at earlier and what we're looking at here.
What we looked at Spartan High School. I think they're the same. We did go ahead and put a total in for the restroom remodel throughout the county. What we were looking at there and discussed was the older elementary school.
She showed you.
That's why we have IT. And they are awesome, by the way. Back to that, we did put a total into the to-be-determined amount for the restrooms. Looking at the elementary schools, the old elementary schools throughout the county, updating those restrooms due to the reasons we know, but around 70 to 75 restrooms is what we're looking at throughout. Going in, taking epoxy floors, which seamless, easier to clean, make them smell better, but updating those. We did put a total in that, so that's different. There was a couple of items as we talked to each board member that we may have added down to the bottom into the unfunded for discussion at some time. And I think that is pretty well everything that had been changed that you may have seen prior to now. If you see something, please point it out and ask me, and I'll be sure to cover it.
So the bathrooms, it fixes the floor. Does it also kind of upgrade them to be more or less like comparable to a newer school in terms of fixtures and stuff?
I do have some additional monies in there that if we need to replace porcelain, sinks, hand dryers, I don't think we would have to replace in every situation. Ceiling tile, that type of thing. Clean it up and get it up modern and nice, yes.
Okay.
Does that encompass, making sure that all the doors lock and all of that, your stalls?
Yeah, I didn't consider that, but I mean, absolutely. I mean, the way I tried to budget, I just fixed a fixed amount per restroom, knowing some's going to need more, some will need less. If we need to change out a stall, porcelain, toilet, sink, hand dryer, that type of thing, we'll have the money to do that. Upgrade those few rooms or those 70, 75 bathrooms also to LED lighting. And
What about hot water?
it's not required, but if it's accessible and we can get it there, that may be an option.
Well, I mean, now with, you know, just requiring that children wash their hands so frequently, you know, I represent several schools that, you know, they don't have hot water in the, you know, in the kids' bathrooms. And so, you know, that's a real deterrent to washing your hands in the middle of the winter if it's, if it's cold.
Yeah.
I speak from experience. I didn't wash mine as often, but we didn't have COVID then either.
I'm saying, I'm sure that we could look at that. They do make small water heaters that make it go above ceilings. That does change the scope of what we're looking at, but it's not something that could not be done.
It's not all.
In most
of them.
cases.
It's not every bathroom.
I understand.
But there are some.
I understand that. Yes, ma'am.
And I just wanted to add that the goal of the plan is to make sure that we take care of those things that we need to fix and build up to keep from, you know, incurring additional costs rather than starting new facilities which would only, you know, encompass a small piece but will take up most of the money. But taking care of roofs and HVAC systems and things of that nature is going to get our buildings where they actually need to be, in the sense of taking care of those immediate issues and concerns that we have.
Yes, that was our focus, looking at the highest needs. And we've concentrated primarily on roofing and on mechanical units. We've still got 30-year-old units plus running. So we're strategically trying to get those out instead of just spending money on old units. We weigh that balance out, you know, if it's better to replace or to repair, but then roofing as well. So that's going to put us way ahead if we can use any bond money or this money, this capital plan, for our facilities, get roof leaks stopped and mechanical units, better air, more uptime, those type of things. Yes, ma'am.
I certainly think that's a good use of this money, that we, you know.
I agree,
Do these
100%.
stopgap
Yes, ma'am.
measures. I was wondering and asked this question the other day when we met with Mr. Perkins, why Madison County High School's parking lot paving is so far down the list. We're on
After we
gravel
got-
now.
Yeah, I apologize. I think I interrupted you.
Okay.
It wasn't that any of it moved. What I did when we was looking at it was take the priorities and just move everything up. Everything below where we have that running balance now, everything below that's really not itemized, or I mean, well, I'm going to still use the word itemized.
Prioritized.
Prioritized is a great word too, yes. It's not prioritized. What we try to do with the state budget and the capital plan, or the capital plan when we turn it into the state, they are looking for the first year to be pretty much what we are trying to do. That is our goal. That's what we are targeting. And most everything after the first year, they say, is our wish list. So that's kind of our wish list, and then as we go, we'll add to that wish list and then prioritize that as we come back around next year and see, you know, where they are. It's not that they're down. I would say the parking lot at Madison County High School where the students park and the parking lot at New Hope are the two worst parking areas that we have in the system at this time.
Did you all consider that thing about UV light, maybe, you know, killing the virus? Is there any consideration of putting that in?
It's too costly, if that sounds bad. We have so many different types of units throughout our system where I could see that we could utilize that. I think if it works, get into what I think, if it works, I would love to try it in an area that we know what the attendance is in that classroom for the last 2 years. What are test scores? And let's see if investing in UV lighting, producing some ozone into it, doing that kind of thing to clean the air, does that increase student absenteeism, or I mean decrease it, or increase their test grades? But to get to what you're saying, it's really easy if we were adding a package unit, a rooftop unit, it can be installed into that, and it comes out of the ductwork. The way we are now, we have each of these units that are pushing air out. We may have a rooftop unit, we may have a boiler somewhere. There's just a lot of moving parts to it. I think in new construction in the future would be something really to look at. And then as we have that opportunity to add it, I think it would be just too costly for our system to look at it on a system-wide add-on right now. And there are a lot of different studies on that, whether it's really, I'm not going to doubt that it doesn't clean the air, but, you know, what do we get in the end of it? I've read a lot of different things on it.
Did we determine there was other monies from, I think, renegotiating those bonds, and there were some other sources of capital money through,
And that would be a question for Karen.
yeah, can we ask that?
She had that kind of in her, what she sent out. Did you see that, Sherry?
In the financial report?
Uh-huh.
Is she
Ms.
on?
O'Bannon, did you hear the question, Ms. O'Bannon?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, we also have, we're pretty sure the bond issue will be around 23 million. I don't have the exact dollars on that, but we have the sale of land that's still set aside in the separate capital project fund, 1.9 million, as well as at least 1 million interest on the bond, on the BRAC bonds, I'm sorry, 1 to 1.5 million. The refunding warrants that were issued last fall, we'll need those dollars to complete the link banning project.
Okay. So,
So we have to consider though, in these different, projects for deferred maintenance, for roofing, HVAC, I know these are estimates, and I always set aside a little money, for what the architect engineering fees might be, and other miscellaneous costs that might not necessarily, be a part of the contractor's cost. So, I believe once we have spent down all of the BRAC bond money, once the projects are complete that are now, ongoing, we should have 300,000. I will go ahead and contact them prior to, completing those projects, prior to fiscal year end, to see exactly what our interest on those warrants is, and how we can go ahead and request those monies as well.
okay.
But we should have around 3 million, over and above what the bond issue, the state bond issue, will be.
So Joe, just in looking at the first page in priority 1 through 9, number 1, you would say that's complete. I mean, I realize it's still, I mean, we've done all the Madison County updates, exhausted all that funds on that line.
Yes, sir.
And then number 2, 3, and 4, which is Sparkman High, the punch list is being worked on that one, right?
That is correct. Thursday of this past week, we've got to substantially complete with the state on Sparkman High School. Now, they're doing the substantially complete for the parking area renovations tomorrow morning at 8.
Okay.
So they have already began the interior punch list, and they will be working on the exterior punch list tomorrow. But that's where we are on that particular project, just down to the punch list and that final inspection in the morning.
And number 5, that one's complete as well? New Hope Elementary School?
No.
No, still, that one's still open. And number 6, Sparkman Middle's should be done. I mean, that's complete.
Yeah,
New
they're
Hope's-
working on a punch list there.
Okay.
And on the New Hope High School, you're talking about on the roofing, correct? Mm-hmm. We're on the punch list, part of that, correct?
Okay. And then number 7, that's ongoing, the construction of the 8 classrooms.
Correct.
8 and 9 are also complete, correct?
Read that out to me, please.
Monrovia Elementary and Central,
Monrovia Elementary,
And the lagoon.
and the Lagoon at Central.
yes, we're waiting on the lagoon to dry so we can finish it, basically. When it's dry and everything in it dries, then we can fold the liner over and put dirt over it, but we're waiting on that.
All right.
Monrovia Elementary, we still have a slab out there
Yeah,
that
the slab.
Mary Louise is
Yeah.
still wanting me to break open. I know, I'm running out of days.
You are.
Okay. This has to be approved and down to the state by
September the 25th,
25th. Right.
yes. I will say too, from being out on the construction and talking to the architects, construction contractors, pricing does seem to have leveled off or even backed up to, I say backed up, more sustainable numbers closer to these. You know, if you remember when we were bidding Lynn Fanning last year, how the prices were, but there doesn't seem to be as much work on the street right now, although we still see there's a lot going on in Huntsville. But the talk is the numbers are, you know, stabilizing and getting back into where they should be. So just to share that with you.
And the central, converting the old lunchroom, that's going to be an in-house project, right? We're not-
Yes, and we have started demolition there, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Joe on the capital plan, or Mr. Perkins on the capital plan?
And I've been glad to try to answer it the best of my ability.
We'll probably be reviewing this at least one more time before the 25th.
Okay. Very well, well, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Joe. All right, informational item B, athletic protocols. Mr. Everett?
Oh, good. I don't have my glasses on for this.
There we go. Push the button. All right, just a few moments to go over our athletics protocol as we open up our fall sports this week. Just to give you a little information of what we've done or what we've pulled to use. We've used the latest fall sports protocol from the Alabama Athletic Association and their best practices and rule changes, the modifications that they developed this spring and on through the summer, and were updated as of July the 29th. We also used, we've consulted with the athletic director from Huntsville City Schools, Madison City, Tom Runyon, athletic director at UAH, Dr. Kate Smith, and Dexter Williams, who's the Alabama A&M athletic operations manager, as well as information from our District 8 principals and athletic directors, the Alabama Department of Public Health, and the publication or memo sent out by the Alabama Association of School Boards. So that's where we've derived a lot of our information and our best practices that we're gonna use as we open up this week. First, I want to thank the ones that are not here tonight, and our administrators and our coaches on the local level, our custodians and nurses, for modeling those the social distancing, for providing masks, for staying on top of our kids and making their workouts and their return to fall practice as safe as possible, for the temperature checks, the sanitation of the facilities and equipment. They've done a phenomenal job. And continue to keep our young people safe, as well as our employees that are out there on a day-to-day basis working with them. So much appreciation to all that's gone into our change of lifestyle as it looks. So currently, our in-season sports, our extracurriculars that we are working with now, of course, is football and volleyball, swimming, cross-country, cheerleading, and marching band. And just as a note, for this year only, our winter sports may hold an evaluation period during the first 10 days of school, with a maximum of 5 days in a 10-day calendar period. Or they can start practice 1 week earlier. That would be October the 12th for our school system, but not both. So evaluations cannot take place, and they're going to begin tomorrow and not take place before 2:30 p.m. so we can maintain and ensure that we're protecting our instructional time. So we're not going to have any practices beginning or evaluations beginning before 2:30 in the afternoon. Any questions about that?
How does that impact students who are involved in a fall sport? that would be doing a winter sport?
That's a good question. I would imagine for those that are already involved, they may have already had some workouts this summer with that sports coach, and I would imagine there's been some communication back and forth. A lot of times the coaches, usually in season, don't usually allow them to practice or to try out, but I'm sure they've had those conversations where they work something out so the student can take advantage if they are a dual sport athlete, those kind of things. So moving forward, as far as our capacity and the numbers we're going to look at we're going to use right now, because we are at level 3, which is a 60% capacity for our established football stadium seating, and also in our gym capacities, per the Alabama High School Athletic Association, we have to use a 50% seating capacity limit. So as you can see, we have each of our schools and middle schools. Some of our middle schools have their own football stadiums, but for the most part, they use their high school stadiums, and it gives you the seating capacity. We took these numbers back in 2015 when our people went around and got the numbers, and also Mr. Gazort has gone around to see if there's been any additions, whether bleachers have brought in. So all this is updated as it is at this time. So on our 60%, you'll see what each stadium is going to be allowed to come into their football stadium, and that does include our visitors. We reach out to our visiting teams to let them know we're supposed to offer equitable seating for our visitors as well. So they have to have the same opportunity, and that's per the Alabama High School Athletic Association. So if we move to a level 2, we would go to a 75% capacity, and you see those numbers out there as well. Some of our schools, will not meet these capacities at 60%. Some will be close. It just, as they say, it depends on if you win 1 or 2 ball games, and the people will come out and get excited about what's going on. So, and these capacity numbers do not include our pass gauge for our employees, for coaches' passes, those kind of state passes, those kind of things, and also it does not include our band. They will be separate as far as this number is concerned. So that's the numbers that we have, and we're going to go with, and we're going to monitor those based on ticket sales. And in a few minutes, I'll explain how we are doing tickets and how they're going to be put out.
Hello, Val.
Yes, sir.
The level 3, level 2, level 1, that's all based on COVID spread, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I think Madison County is green now, so at a minimum, we would be able to go to level 2 if we were to start, correct?
That will be up to the superintendent.
So, yeah, these levels are based on our reopening plan, not necessarily based on the ADPH leveling system that they have in place.
All right.
These are our levels.
Okay.
Yeah, so when Mr. Perkins gives us we'll follow that protocol, and we'll make adjustments, and we'll get that information out to our people as needed. Any other questions about stadium or gymnasiums?
Lavelle,
Yes, ma'am.
like this may be next on your thing, but like the tickets, you have no idea whether it's the home team or the visiting team buying the tickets, right? The tickets are online and you just buy the ticket. Is that right?
Well, we're going to sell pre-sale paper tickets as well.
Oh, are you?
So they'll be administered, go ahead, from our offices up here. Each bookkeeper will be administered the 60% of tickets that correlates with the stadium seating at 60%. And that number will be allowed to be sold pre-sale for the local and for our local people, and also the visiting team will have an opportunity to go on to GoFan is the ticket medium we're going to use, and purchase those tickets until we're out of tickets. And any tickets that are left over that are not sold, say by whenever each school cuts it off, maybe it's Thursday afternoon, those extra paper tickets, or if there's still some available on GoFan, those will be available at the gate. We just felt like, and a lot of the principals felt like, we would have people from out of town that may or may not get the information, and they may have an opportunity to come in and buy a ticket. So that was a lot of discussion about that. We want to give everybody that can, and within our limits, an opportunity to get out and support the young people. Anything else about tickets? All right, protocol, and like I said, this protocol is strictly that we've pulled from various sources that come, from the best practices, and then also with talking with other personnel throughout the state. Our teams and game personnel, everyone will be required to have a mask before entering the stadium or athletic facilities. Just today, I took signs. We had some signs developed, and we've taken signs to every high school for mask, no entry without a mask, and also for our social distancing, maintaining social distancing. So each high school gym and or football facility will have those signs in place. And for the most part, most of the schools are narrowing down their entryways to consolidate where people are coming in and out. So all the signage will be up is one of the best practices. So we've got those. I delivered them today to the high schools. So sidelines, limited only essential personnel, our team, coaching staff, training staff, administrators, and that will be controlled by school personnel. We'll strictly enforce that. The HSA, or the National Federation, extended the sidelines from 10-yard line to 10-yard line. Typically, I think it's a 25 or something like that. So it's been extended for social distancing of players and cheerleaders. So all game participants will be screened prior to arrival at the stadium for temperature and health questions by the coaches or training staff. Anyone with a fever or symptoms will not be allowed to enter the stadium, and that's game participants. We would prefer our visiting teams to arrive at the stadium fully dressed to maximum ability to limit time in the locker room. Not that we're not going to allow locker rooms, but we'll have those for visitors, but it would be preferred if they arrive as dressed as possible. All visiting game participants should be screened prior to arrival at the stadium for temperature and health questions. The same thing is for people that come into our stadium, and each high school coach or administrator, they're communicating that with the team that they're playing, and they have a protocol. It may not all be the same, but they'll provide them with the list or an updated roster with those temperatures, a checklist saying that those guys or ladies that may cheer or in the band are not running a fever, and they're allowed to come in the stadium. So we keep up with that just in the event that we have a positive test, and then you can start the health department can start their contact tracing. And we're encouraging visiting teams to have a travel squad to limit numbers on the sideline, meaning a lot of teams will travel with their varsity and junior varsity. So we would like for them to just bring really the junior varsity people that are actually going to be participating or have a chance to, which would free up more room for social distance on the sideline. Officials will have their temperature checked and health screened as they arrive at the stadium too. Anyone with a fever or symptoms will not be allowed to enter the stadium. So the officials association, they have to have a backup plan as well, but they will be checked before they enter the stadium in their dressing room or area that they dress. The chain, we call them chain crew or chain gangs, we call them. They're also the same thing, same protocol for them as well. Locker rooms, sorry, next slide. Locker rooms are available, but we want to allow small groups to allow for social distancing if possible. They'll be controlled by the coaching staff from each team. Teams will be asked to use an outside area of the locker room to spread out, and we're going to request no showering post-game, which typically most do not take showers anymore anyway. Water procedure that's being developed by our training staffs. Go figure, they don't. Anyway, I can't get into that. TOC, Sports Med provide for our schools, so they're going to be in charge along with our school personnel as far as how they're going to handle their water procedures for water on the sideline and those kind of things. Press box as well will be limited to a clock operator, public address announcer, a broadcast team if applicable, and of course our coaches' boxes. Typically they're on each side of the press box, depending on what school you go to. They'll all have their temperature checked as well in the same protocol. Band, they're subject to the same protocol as well. They'll be temperature checked before they come into the stadium. Cheerleaders, same thing, but they'll be socially distanced on the sideline. That's something that our cheer sponsors are working to find in conjunction with the coaches to find out the best place for our cheer squad, since the sideline is extended for football players, we want to be sure our cheer squads are not in danger and have access to do the thing they're supposed to do is bring spirit and support to the football team. So our bands will be socially, and auxiliary units will be socially distanced in the stands as well. And that's going to be enforced by our band directors and the sponsors. And then also, as far as band is concerned, there's some changes as well as for the protocol. They're not allowed to, typically if you've gone to a lot of high school football games, the band, probably about, 5 minutes left in the second quarter, they start filing down, they start doing their warm-ups, but the way the protocol is now, they have to leave the stands and go directly to the field, no warm-ups, and there's a certain amount of time that they're going to have to do their show. So that's something that's going to be a lot different for our band directors and the students as well. So, any questions about that?
Who's going to do the temperature checks?
Each school is going to have a tent, and they're going to have their own personnel. Our personnel at each high school will be there to maintain and do those temperature checks. I'm not sure if it's going to be, if they're going to contract a nurse or it's going to be someone on staff that maybe duty for. I'm not sure exactly. So they'll follow the safety protocol as well.
And is there going to be any enforcement during the game, like any surveillance of what's going on, or is it
You mean as far as?
mask obedience, or what do you want to call it?
We're going to do the best we can. And I would think any administrator at any high school that as myself, I've managed several high school football games. You're visible. You're moving through the crowd. You're going to have to make reminders, and they know to do that. And I think they're going to do those kind of things. But you have to also understand, if you're within 6 feet and you're sitting in a cluster with your family, the protocol says you do not have to wear a mask. We're encouraging them. But if they're in a family unit, so there's some of those things that are going to be hard to manage. But I think our people are going to do as good a job as they can do to be sure that everyone's staying safe. Hopefully without having to cause a scene. And, we want people to enjoy this time. This is a privilege. And we want everyone to enjoy watching the kids. I was at a rec game Saturday for some kids at church. They were at Buckhorn. And just hearing the people talk about how great it was to be outside again and to see their grandkids do these kind of things. It was very encouraging. So I'm sure our people are going to want to continue and want to support their kids. So we're going to encourage, and I think all of our staff at every school is going to do the same thing to encourage. And I'm sure our SROs will be. I'm not sure what their place is going to be, and that's from the principals. But I'm sure that they're going to be very visible in modeling and letting them know that's what we need to do. So we got one home football game this week in our entire system, Friday night at Madison County High School. So we'll get to see and see how things go, and so hopefully it'll go well. That's the plan. So I think I've said enough about that. All right, sorry. Ticketing, I kind of went over that, provided their paper tickets based on 60% of stadium, and it's pretty self-explanatory. The remainder of the paper tickets that are not sold prior to kickoff will be available at the gate, not to exceed the 60% seating capacity. So everybody, if you're a teacher and you're working duty at the gate, you're going to be temperature checked, those kind of things. So we're going to have a lot of safety checks in place. Concessions, we encourage, they should be made available for prepackaged items. Hopefully that's the plan. Each concession worker will also be checked as well before they come in for duty. And we'll have a list, everybody will have a list of who works concessions, those kind of things, to be sure we're on top of everything as far as who's in the stadium that's working. And down to fans, your question, fans will be masked they will not get in, we're not going to allow anyone into the stadium without a mask. Okay, that's the hard line right there. And masks must be worn at all times within 6 feet of a person from another household. And that's the way it's worded through Alabama Department of Public Health and AHSAA. Children must be supervised and not allowed to run around. Some of the most fun I ever had as a kid was running around at a high school football game, but we have to be sure that we're practicing best practices with that. We're going to ask each stadium to have a area designated for high-risk attendees, so they will provide social distance seating. Each high school principal and athletic director is coming up with their plan for that. Restrooms will be limited in capacity and socially distanced as marked with signs. We're going to encourage fans not to congregate within 6 feet of a person from another household without wearing a mask. So once again, I've kind of beat that into the ground, but that's kind of what we're looking at. And this last slide came straight from the AASB memo, and just kind of give some ideas, or when should you be socially distanced? When should you have your face coverings on? Just a little example that they sent out. So, any questions, anybody?
I just wonder if the general public knows that they have to keep their children with them. We had a scrimmage last week at Madison County, and it was business as usual as far as, as the children entertaining themselves at the
Right.
game, not the ones playing. So, I mean, this is, I think, a big thing. This is certainly different. So is that out there for anybody?
I don't know that they've put it out there yet, but we'll remind them to put that out there. We're going to, we're going to have to request parents to be parents
Right.
and take care of their kids, or we don't want to ruin it for others. So I'll be sure we touch base with all the high school principals to be sure it goes out to them, however they send their information out to all their people.
And you just hate to see these high school principals have to just be the bad guy. If they just need to know ahead of time, this is what's required. If you're bringing your child to the game, they need to sit with you. That's for the child's safety.
Right. And hopefully they will, but you know what? It's, we do a lot for parents these days, and we'll continue to try to help guide them to be sure that they know what's expected and the kids know what's expected. So we'll all try to work together and make it a pleasurable experience.
May need to have the elementary schools put that out, because that's where the young kids are.
Right. Well, all their feet, we'll get it. We'll send it to everybody to be sure, just as a reminder, if you have students that are coming. That's a good. We'll do that.
Are the pre-ticket sales, is every conference or every district, is everybody doing the pre-ticket sales? So does Huntsville City know that when they come to Sparkman High or to Buckhorn or to Hazel Green, that they've got to buy tickets on GoFan?
Yeah, the neat thing about our ADs, and I'll say this in our system, they do a good job of pre-talking to everybody they're going to play, so they know the expectations. Just like, if we have a team going to Muscle Shoals, I don't think they don't want bands to come, or there's some restrictions. Huntsville City is strictly GoFan. So each system is doing their own thing, so to speak, a little bit, some similarities, but they're trying to tailor it best for their population, I think, and their people.
And there won't be a designated student sections at the games?
Now, I'm not saying there's not, but I think they're going to really talk about the social distancing and having someone to manage that, because, what's a game without a student section? I mean, if I'm a high school kid, I'm going to the ball game, and I want. But I think on a high school level, elementary is one thing, like you said, they really may not know the grasp of everything. But high school kids know that, they've known since March that this was something, and as it's developed throughout the whole, summer and where we are now, they understand they may not want to, but they need to understand. And I think the principals and the personnel at schools will let them know that, hey, we're spacing out, we're going to do these things. And I think some are marking spots, those kind of things for where they're going to be able to stand or sit, those kind of things. So
We've been in numerous conversations with our principals meeting concerning this, and they understand and working through the protocols and the procedures and following the guidelines that's put in place. And that's something that we continue to reiterate and cover with them, and Lavelle's done a good job of that as well.
So when Sparkman has a home game, where's the band going to sit? Socially distanced.
I think they're in the new part.
They have three new bleachers, and they're separated out, so they're, yeah.
And each
And when you-
schools are different, so their setup is different, but they've worked out and working through the details of how to station and organize their people at each one of each one of our schools.
So when you say band members socially distance in the stands, are they 6 feet apart actually in the stands?
That's what's going to be expected, yeah. And, of course, you know, when they get on the field, that's a different story.
Right, right.
But
Is
yeah,
it-
they're supposed to be 6 feet apart, within wherever they're gonna sit. You know, like Mr. Perkins said, we've talked extensively to all of our principals about, you know, the band. We want them all there. But we want to be sure that we're, you know, doing what we're good stewards of our word. You know, let's do what we say we're gonna do.
So each school has verified that that is actually possible. They've already kind of tested that with the environment they're standing in.
Per what the principals said, you know, they've had conversations with the band directors, and
Okay.
they know the expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern. I mean, a band of 250
start
or so, it's a
calculating, yeah, it's
very large
250.
area to socially
That's 6 feet
distance
apiece.
250 kids.
Yeah, you start calculating that, you start,
Yeah.
do you even have the capacity to do it?
And some bands may streamline. They may have, you know, I don't know. I mean, we never had that problem
Right,
where I was a
right.
principal,
Yeah.
to have that kind of an issue, but, you know, they may bring.
Something we can check on and we'll
Yeah.
get back to you. I don't want to speculate on.
Sure,
what they do.
sure, okay.
Let's get information. I don't want false information to go out about something we're doing that we're not doing. So we'll follow back up with that.
Any more questions?
But to clarify, no funnel cakes.
No, what?
Funnel cakes.
That's a
All of us
travesty,
are-
but probably not.
She's out. Angie's out.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Administrative items. Item A, I recommend approval of the memorandum of agreement with Wellstone.
Motion.
Second?
I have a recommendation for the approval of the memorandum of agreement with Wellstone. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 I recommend approval of Board Policy 5.14, Employee Sexual Harassment Updates as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of Board Policy 5.14, Employee Sexual Harassment Updates as submitted. Any discussion or questions?
Cindy, this brings us up to code, right, where we need to be?
Any further questions? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 I recommend approval of Board Policy 6.11, Student Sexual Harassment Updates as submitted.
Motion.
Second?
Hold on one second here.
I'd like to point out something on this policy for May, Mr. Superintendent.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval for Board Policy 6.11, Student Sexual Harassment Updates as submitted.
Cindy wanted
Ms. Thompson, go ahead.
Okay, if you look at this policy, the last three sections were omitted from the AASB draft that we reviewed the last meeting. So the section on confidentiality, retaliation prohibited, and penalties for violation, you had those sections, or sections that address those three topics in your former policy. It's also in Policy 514, so Mr. Kubik and I felt like you needed to address those three topics. So we mirrored the language in the personnel policy and put it here, but that is in addition to what we talked about at your work session most recently. It's very general language, but it just covers those three areas.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Is there any questions with regards to that? If there's no additional questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 I recommend approval of the deletions of property as submitted.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the deletions of property as submitted. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
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 I recommend approval of financial statements and payments of bills for July 2020.
Motion.
Second.
I have a recommendation for approval of the financial statements and payment of bills for July of 2020. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 I recommend approval of the following personnel items and Addendum 1 and Addendum 2 as submitted.
Get past
Contracts of services, Alan.
Oops. All right, well, let's go back. Item F.
I'm like, making sure I had this correct this time, since last time I messed up.
Well, it's my turn. I recommend approval of contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of contracts for services as submitted. Any discussion?
Is 18 right? It's sort of worded odd. Oddly.
18.
Karen, is that contract, is that worded right in the, on number 18? She's still on?
Yeah, she's on.
Yes, sir, that's how it was submitted to, the central office. I'm not sure if that relates to virtual training or something of that nature. I really don't know, but that's the wording as submitted.
I do know some of the training programs and things that they're doing are digitized in terms of digital connections, and that could be exactly what they're referring to.
Okay.
Good question.
That is good.
Any additional questions? If there are none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. There you go.
All right, now, I recommend approval of the following personnel items and Addendum 1 and Addendum 2 as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the following personnel items, Addendum 1 and Addendum 2 as submitted. Any questions, or can't really discuss this a whole lot, but any questions? Ken, are we about this, does this about cover it for at least the start of the school year?
We've got about 30 more jobs yet, sir, but we're in good shape going forward right now.
Okay.
Ken, is this more resignations than we normally have?
I would have to say yes, ma'am, there are quite a few more that are just kind of tied to, in our support positions specifically, that are related to, I guess, for lack of a better term, this COVID situation. But as far as our certified staff, it's pretty much normal. It's a lot of those people that are relocating closer to home or, other districts.
Okay.
Any additional questions or discussion? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
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 I recommend approval of supplements as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of supplements as submitted. Any questions on this? There are none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
All right. That ends our administrative items for the evening. Angie, and you and I talked about this real quick yesterday.
I was like, why are you talking to me? Yes.
Before we move into the executive session, there's a virtual or group,
Yeah.
District 9,
Well, you know, they normally do a District 9 dinner,
right?
and this year they're doing it virtually, but the email did say that if a board wanted to get together and share dinner amongst themselves at central office, that was an opportunity, and then the district speaker would be online or virtual. And so I thought that is something that, I think most of us normally try to attend the dinner together,
Right,
so I
too.
thought it'd be something. And the virtual speaker is on virtual school, so I thought that was something that perhaps we could go ahead and plan to attend together. I was trying to find the email.
It's the 15th of September, I think. Is that the date? Do you? That's right, so we get the budget done.
Is it the 15th? Hold on, I found the email. These are usually on Monday. Yeah, Monday, the September 14th,
Okay.
6 to 8.
Okay,
So I didn't know if anybody was available. It's 1.5 hours of training. I don't think it can count for whole board count training, but since most of us didn't get to attend summer, it will get some of your 6 hours that you're supposed to get
Yeah.
for the year. So I thought that might be an opportunity for us to, what to expect.
I did
Do we-
register for that, and, I think that's a good idea. if
so we
could do that.
individually register, and then if we want to come here and do dinner here and have it on the big screen,
Yeah.
we could do that?
Because there's no charge for it's free
Yeah.
this time,
Charge was always for dinner.
but we should pay for our own dinner.
Own dinner, yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought if we wanted to have something
That-
brought in, or,
Is it something that, so we would individually RSVP, and then we would just show up here?
yeah, perhaps we could just put it on a Google Calendar
Yeah,
and then go ahead and have Ms. Yoder register us all, and then we can agree to meet here and reserve this room from 6 to 8 to be able to watch it on the big screen, and then
yeah.
we can decide whether we want to order something amongst ourselves or whether each person would like to bring their own.
Okay, I'll send a note to Ms. Yoder, and we'll have her do the registration for everybody, and then we'll go from there. All right. And then the 15th of September is the budget, the last budget meeting. So Karen, the 5th of September is the preliminary or the draft budget hearing, and then we do the final budget hearing on the 15th, correct?
Yes, the September 3rd.
Third.
Thursday night, the 3rd
Yeah.
is the first budget hearing, and then Tuesday night, the 15th, be the second budget hearing, where we actually, ask that you approve the budget.
Got it. Okay. I don't know why I keep saying the 5th. All right. Does anybody have anything for the good of the board before we move to our next portion of the agenda? Angie, anything other than
That's all
that?
I had.
Mary Louise, anything?
No, just, looking forward to people interacting with children tomorrow.
Nathan, you got anything?
Nothing?
Sherry?
Nope, I went to see Sparkman's new edition, and it was very, very nice.
Pretty nice, isn't it? Yeah. They've done a very, very good job with that. The construction company did an excellent job. So kudos to them. Kudos to everyone there. Has anybody else also signed? I'm signed up to go to the October conference. It's on the 4th and 5th of October, the one down in Montgomery. I'm signed up to go. I don't know if anybody else is signed up to it. Are you going, Nathan? Is that fall break,
How
really?
are they going to do that?
I think they're limiting the number of people that can go,
Okay.
so that we can probably put no more than 3 people at a round table, and then they'll do that. But I know Kathy registered me, and I guess Nathan, you're registered now too for it as well. So, okay, great. All right. The next item on is an executive session. We are doing so to discuss some unique student transfers and some additional litigation. I've got the certification from Ms. Thompson to do that. We will adjourn from here to go into executive session. We will return from executive session to only vote on anything that needs to be voted on, and then we will adjourn the meeting for the night. So you're welcome to stay, if you so choose. I don't know how long we'll be in executive session, but you're welcome to stay. I need a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session. Any further discussion? If there is none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned to executive session.